So could a frigid winter storm that shut down Northern Virginia cool our red hot real estate market? Let's take a look at the numbers. So when I was putting together the figures for this Northern Virginia weekly market update, I also checked national sources. And right there at the very top of Housing Wire, one of my favorite websites, it said this, that the winter storm that shut down large parts of our country did not cool buyer demand. And when you scroll to the very top of the page, you can see why. You see, with interest rates in the low sixes, buyers that were staying on the sidelines in the high sixes and even to the mid sevens, they're coming out. And with limited inventory, they're making the availability of homes even smaller. So now let's pivot to our local Northern Virginia market stats and ask them two different questions, right? Number one, did this past weekend storm have a cooling effect on the market? And then number two, for buyers that are heading out this weekend and ready to write an offer, do they have more options? Is the market going to be any more in their favor than it was last weekend? So diving into the numbers for this first question, it appears that the snowstorm did not have a cooling effect on our market. In fact, newly ratified contracts were actually up 5.8%. And leading the way, you can see right here, were Prince William County, with a positive 21.6% increase in contracts, and then close in Arlington County at 48.4% positive, with the other three areas just being slightly in the red. But that means that, despite the snowstorm keeping the kids out of school and, wrecking, I'm sure, most games and activities over the weekend, it did not hold back new offers. Okay? And if we dive into the submarkets, if you will, you can see these are the regions that did the absolute best. You see right here, Prince William County condos were up 118%. Arlington single families up 90%. In fact, Arlington overall was up close to 50%. And then in Loudoun County, leading the way for that was the townhome market. So the second question at hand is, if you're a buyer heading out there this weekend, have the conditions gotten any more favorable to you? The first stat we're going to look at there is the tried and true month's worth of inventory. And those numbers, looking at our 5 different areas in this region, say not really. Arlington County got a little more favorable, right? It went from 1.8 months worth of inventory to 1.9 months worth of inventory. But that's really a reflection of the number of homes that went from pending status to closing versus actives than it is necessarily what happened with the contracts. Because when you look at the next stat, which is my favorite stat for showing how the market is going, the active to pending ratio, 2 out of our 5 regions are even hotter, which means that the conditions favored the sellers even more than they did heading into last weekend, which was pretty stacked in the sellers' favors. So Arlington County, despite getting that slight increase in the month's worth of inventory, their active to pending ratio actually went from 1.79 down to 1.54, meaning that there's actually fewer options for buyers than there were before. And then in Prince William County, you got even hotter, right? Going from 1 active to pending ratio down to 0.9. So the answer is that the markets still favor the sellers, and it appears that they're going to continue to do so. So interest rates might fall, which will make things more favorable. But if you're on the sideline looking for, a sweet spot to develop for, the market favoring buyers, very, very unlikely to happen. So this is what the stats are telling us about the overall market here in Northern Virginia. But if you have questions about your specific home, you need to talk to a locally focused agent, and I'd love to connect you with one. So I run Stone Pine Partners, which connects clients, buyers, and sellers with the best locally focused agent for their specific house. And I also run Balance Busy, which trains many of the top agents in this area. So if you're a buyer or seller, check out my website, stonepine.partners. And if you're an agent and you'd love to learn how I make these market stat shows each and every week, just head to balancedbusy.com, sign up for beta access to our tool, and I share my whole formula with my subscribers. All right, thanks for tuning in, and I will see you next week for another Northern Virginia real estate market update. Thanks.